Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another weekly Poker Showdown brought to you by Partypoker. I'm your host, Jaime Staples, and this week on the podcast, we have Phil Sabbah, legendary worker over at Playground Poker. He's the CMO of Playground Poker is his official title. But Playground Phil is how I know him. An incredible guy, and he's going to talk about one of the most premier card rooms in Canada, but the WPT Montreal going on, and some of the old stories as to how the club came to be. Mike Sexton winning his WPT there. It was a great conversation. I think you guys are all going to really enjoy it. But before we get into that, let's talk about some of the online poker news from this week. Let's kick off the show talking a little bit about the World Championship of Amateur Poker that is going on Partypoker. This is a pretty new and exciting thing. So amateur players are going to get a chance to play the World Championship of Amateur Poker, WCOAP, set to begin later this month. So it's going to run from January 23rd until February 7th, with the two-day main event capping off the series. It's in its 12th year and is going to be played online in full for the first time, which is very exciting. Main event comes with a guarantee of $150,000, can be bought into for $109,000. Wow, that is a lot. That is a big guarantee on that 109 buy-in. That's amazing. There's going to be 16 bracelet events for the first time. There will also be a mirrored mini-series of 15 events. Players can already start qualifying via satellites. So if you're an amateur poker player, make sure to check that out on Partypoker. Very cool, 2021 World Championship of Amateur Poker. Next up, WPT Montreal Schedule is confirmed with the main event starting this Sunday. I talk about it all in the conversation with Phil Sabbah. So you guys, I'll get a bunch of the highlights there. But 3200 main event starts this Sunday. Huge satellites on day 1A Sunday and day 1B the following Sunday. So you have ways to get in there from 1 cent all the way into the 3200 main event for every bankroll. This is going to be a very special tournament. $2 million guarantee. And I'll see you on the felt. Should be awesome. Also, we talk about the Mike Sexton Classic as well. It's a 10,000 buy-in, $1 million guarantee at the end of the festival. Also, in some more industry news, the WPT Circuit moves online for 2021. The series began this week with the first of 13 online tournaments to begin the new season. The Online Circuit series will have an online festival monthly in 2021 in Nevada and New Jersey. There will be a year-end championship event similar to how the circuit usually builds towards the Global Casino Championship. Every ring winner this season will automatically win a ticket to the championship, and some tournaments will be branded by Caesars properties such as Caesars Atlantic City in May and Rio and Las Vegas in August. Last little bit of news, Sheldon Adelson, a guy that is not very loved in the poker world, has passed away at the age of 87 from non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'm not really sure how to feel about this personally, to be honest. I mean, a lot of the Twitter world is celebrating this. A lot of the Twitter world is saying, hey, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. That's something I was taught. But I'm kind of conflicted as to how I should feel internally. What I do know is that Sheldon Adelson seemed to be the driving force behind keeping online poker out of the U.S. and lobbied with his substantial personal wealth to avoid online poker coming into the U.S. from a nationwide level. So obviously, just purely that data point, that's something that has caused a lot of pain to me in my personal career, but then also all the professionals in the United States that had to travel out of the country to continue doing what they wanted to do. All of the amateur poker players within the U.S. that have been unable to play regulated poker and or push to unregulated poker sites because of those actions. So I'm hoping that we see positive change in that area. And as for the rest of it, I'm not sure how to feel. But that's the news. Moving on now to the Roll of Honor. Let's talk about the KO series here. And first, Kronk the Man has won more than $60,000 by placing first in the 1-1-1-1 one-shot. I played against Kronk the Man. Very good. The Weekender title was also claimed by Oxydo222 for over $55,000. And Mr. 1111 became the high roller champion and won more than $44,000. He also trash-talked me the other day on the table. So Mr. 11, congratulations on winning the tournaments. That's really great. But also, don't trash talk me on the table. Okay, bro? Chill out. Chill out. Am I shoved too wide? Maybe. But chill out. You won the High Roller Championship. Can you take it in a 109 bounty, man? Are you going to be okay? This may be too personal. I'm sorry. It's a little fresh. It was just yesterday. Okay. WSOP going on. Nicholas Arstedt won the 10,000 heads up no limit hold'em for over 348,000. I mean, What a legend Nicholas Arstedt is. I mean, week after week, we got to praise Nicholas Arstedt in this role of honor. Congratulations for winning the 10K heads up. And Elis Perisnen took down the high roller main event for just over 79,000. That's it for the online poker news this week. Let's get into the conversation with Phil Sabbah. Joining me on the podcast today, I have a man from my new city here, a man that I met a few years ago when I went to the iconic and legendary poker club, Playground Poker, here in Canada. Phil Sabbah. Phil, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I want to ask you a bunch about Playground, especially in times like these. Like, it's particularly crazy to be talking live poker. But take me back to your background before you started up working with Playground. How did you find yourself in a position to start working with them?
That's a long time ago, man. I really gotta think deep into my past, because I feel like I've been part of the family so long. When Playground was an idea, when it was first conceptualized, I was part of the team. So before then, I was part of the poker world. I mean, I think I had the aspirations, like many, I guess, young people do once they fall in love with the game, to kind of go down that path and make a living as a player. I did for a bit. And then the business side, I guess, just took over. And then it was just an issue. I mean, again, this is, I'm going to summarize in much simpler words and a shorter narrative. But I guess it was just a matter of juggling work and playing. And then, I mean, I don't know if this applies here. You don't shit where you eat, but
right.
to this day, I don't like playing a Playground. Occasionally I'll want to play, I'll get the bug, I'll sit at a table, and it's just, you shouldn't be playing at the place that, you work in, you operate, whether it just be for optics. Maybe there was just optics back then, where if you win, people ask questions,
Yes,
just better
absolutely.
off. And then
it's so weird in Vegas how you have guys that deal, and then on their break they sit down and they play with their tips, and then they go back to dealing. It's a weird thing, man. I don't know about it.
So that's I guess it just naturally progressed away from there. I for as long as I can remember. I mean, this is, when I got out of school. Let's say when I got out of high school. Probably 2 years after. So right before university, everything that I was doing in my life, poker was part of it. So whether I was working or if I wasn't working, poker was always a very large part of my life back then. I remember playing online tournaments. I'll never forget. Well, this is kind of what happens, right? You start playing poker fun. You're playing with friends. You enjoy the game. You're playing for, whether it be $10, $20, $25. Poker Room. I don't know if you remember pokerroom.com. That was my first 100%. Foray into online poker. And I took down a tournament, and it must have been, I think, a $20 buy-in, but there's like 2,000 people in it. And you're like, hang on a second, I really am that good,
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess once I took down a big enough tournament, I kind of had enough confidence in myself to keep on pursuing. And yeah, I just kind of did that. And then this opportunity came around, and here I am.
That's the classic poker tale, isn't it? It's the early success, like, I got a knack for this.
Yeah. It's funny because if I look back now, well, both, right? I'll sit at a table now, and I realize that the game has evolved way beyond my skill set, right? You stop playing for 5-10 years. It isn't like riding a bike. I remember what the cards are worth. I remember what hand beats what hand, but I don't remember what made me so successful. There was a certain element of I'll never forget a story. I told a player at a table that I couldn't understand why you get so angry. Like, I keep on losing, It's like, I don't get it. I have a set and I lose. I got a flush. How do I lose? And I'm like, well, who cares what you have? And I remember the specific. It doesn't matter what you have. Why are you so upset? You lost with the flush. Big deal, right? Yeah. There's a boat over there. There's a bigger flush. Like, you didn't see that coming, and it didn't compute. Where I think now, if I sit down, I'm strictly playing my cards, and I'll get scared and be bluffed off the pot very easily. Whereas back then, it didn't matter what I had. I somehow could figure out what you had. Yeah. And, you'd play shit cards and you'd win, and you'd fold strong cards, and you were right to do so, right? So, yeah, it just the game has evolved, and whatever I knew, I no longer know. And what people know now is way beyond what I could do. So Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. How about live poker back before Playground came to be? I'm curious personally because Playground is such an icon in Canadian poker. You know, I'm over at home in Alberta. People are talking about a series going on at Playground, which is a 4-hour flight away. You know, like it is a really big institution in Canadian poker. But what was poker like in Montreal before that? You know, was there a poker scene? Like how did the idea to create a poker room and the Canadian poker room come to be?
Well, there was a very large poker scene. The unfortunate reality was that that poker scene wasn't one that was accessible. I mean, it was accessible by most if you knew the right people, and it's a big enough community where if you want to play, you'll find your game. Um, but whether it was at bars that were running tournaments, whether it be specific other establishments that were hosting games. Um, there was no shortage of access to poker,
Mm-hmm.
but there just was a shortage of access to poker within a more mainstream type environment or capacity. Uh, the Ganawagi Gaming Commission, I mean, we actually operate, outside the jurisdiction of the provinces. We operate within the jurisdiction of Ganawagi, and we have our own gaming commission over here, which is the Ganawagi Gaming Commission. But they were pioneers within the gaming space, and they became an online regulator. I believe it was in the late '90s, if not the early 2000s, and then in the mid 2000s they saw that poker was taking off, and I think there was a conscious decision at that point. And again, I'm gonna really summarize something that I wasn't part of, but that my understanding of what it was that there's an opportunity that exists over here. People are operating games. People might even be operating games within our own jurisdiction, but they're not being regulated.
Right.
We have a governing body. We are regulating gaming. We might as well go ahead and create something that would allow us to offer this game in a more comfortable and trustworthy fashion. So, they started issuing out, I think, a handful of licenses. There were very successful properties here within the territory, starting in the early 2000s, about like 2005, 2006, I think. And Playground actually was a poker room called the Quarry before it was Playground.
Mm.
They weren't as successful, obviously, as we are today, but they had their demand, they had their market. And just as time went on, there were just conversations about, I think, where poker could be going, and we took it to the next level. But I mean, in terms of, I think I strayed away from your question, but what the environment was like, you have never seen successful charity tournaments ever, I think, than what was happening in Montreal back then, where the buy-ins, I remember, was $250, which isn't a cheap buy-in by any stretch of the words, with rebuys and add-ons, and the rebuys and add-ons are at $125 a pop, and you're getting 5,000 chips. The blinds are going up quickly, like these tournaments where it's a crapshoot. Imagine where you have dealers that aren't trained, you got players really aren't that skilled. You might be getting 3 to 6 hands per orbit.
Yeah.
It can get very expensive very, very quickly.
Right.
And they were bringing in 2,000 players. There was 4 or 5 day ones over the course of like 3 or 4 days. I'll never forget. We had, at that point in time, all the big players were running events. You had Tilt, you had Ultimate Bet back then, you had Party that was also involved. But that just kind of reinforced how big the demand was and how big the market was that people were prepared to go and play these events where, say the price pool is $250,000, top 10 people are going to Vegas and playing for 20 grand because it's a charity event, but just people wanted to play the game. Montreal specifically has always been, as far as I can tell, a breeding ground for not only skilled players, but just recreational as a whole. There was just a huge demand.
Mm. I love to hear it, man. I'm loving to hear the stories. Is there a standout moment from your time at Playground, like any particular moment in time where you were there working or something where you're just like, wow, this is insane, Do you have like a top moment as your time there?
There's a couple, and it's funny because much like everything else in life, as time goes on, you almost forget those feelings. Like they say time heals all wounds. Well, time also is very good at erasing memories. because it's just something else happens and it just becomes the norm, right? But I would say that our first WPT was probably that, not really an aha moment, because we had some pretty great successes beforehand, but the first WPT where just as a group, as an entity, as a collective of people that kind of came from a specific past within the gaming space, but one that was, you know, not so much regulated, being able to, you know, you have these plans as to what it is you envision the property being, and how you can bring it to the next level. That obviously, you know, include associating ourselves with specific online partners and hosting some of these world-renowned events. And being able to bring in a WPT was something that we weren't sure how that was going to go, right? We expect it to be big. We know that there's a market here, but there's also our biggest buy-in tournament. Prior to that, I think that was like a 3K buy-in. I think before that, we might have did a 1K or 2,500. And at that point in time, maybe we got 30 or 40 people at a buy-in at that level, you know?
Yeah.
I might be mistaken, but I remember it was just, how big can we go? If we do 200 to 300 people, this is going to be a hugely successful tournament. As time went on and we were approaching, you know, our first day one, I think through just emails, phone calls, pre-registrations, if we were taking people's deposits prior to the event to ensure that you had a seat, we had 400. We're like, okay, we're going to do awesome. We're going to do like 500-600. This is insane. The day comes, and I'm never going to forget that week, that first event, where myself and some other colleagues back then, we were probably putting in like 19-20-hour days, because first of all, you don't have enough people on staff to accommodate the influx of players. You don't want to kick anybody out. You want to host the best tournament ever. You want to make sure every single person that comes here enjoys the experience, also because we had just undergone that our first big expansion, and we kind of gambled a lot on this WPT that it'll work out, and you know, it'll be worth whatever we're doing now. And at the end of it, we ended up I think coming in second place at that time in terms of all-time attendance for WPT. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was season 13, might have been 11. So 11 to 13 years of this WPT brand. It's a monster, right?
Yeah.
And especially back then, because poker was still in its early phases of their boom. And I think we were 6 or 9 players off of the record for the largest gathering of people for WPT events. So that was, no doubt, that was the biggest feather in our cap at that point. And I think even to this date, that was that moment that kind of just pivoted us and made us all realize that we have something here. Not only we always believed it, we drank our own Kool-Aid. And I said, on a second, this isn't just Kool-Aid. This is real, right? There's other people that share this mindset with us, and that's just this collective of players that appreciate what we're doing, appreciate the brand, and there's something here for years to come. And then it just, after that one event, things really snowballed and didn't turn back. We were working with all the major players, bringing in bigger and bigger events, bigger and bigger tournaments. But it'll always stand a test of time, that first WPT, that no matter what else we did afterwards, that one really is special.
Yeah. That's great to hear. And I imagine the logistics of, you know, running tournaments with four or five tables, you know, these big events with 4 or 5 tables, to tournaments over 100 tables big, you know, like scaling from that to that size quickly, that must have had some challenges, you know, like how do you manage to run a tournament with that many bodies in it at one time, man? It's insane. There's only a few spots in the world that even do that.
It's a testament to the staff. You know, I remember conversations that we've had, or you know, that I had back then with the dealers and the management team, that, you know, as we grow, I wouldn't say it's unfortunate, but as a company grows, it grows bigger. There's more individuals, there's more departments. It can't run so much like a family business. Back then, this was 100% a mom and pop shop, where it was, you know, we'd have these team meetings before the doors opened up and everybody gets amped up. It's like, you know, you're walking into a playoff game. Let's get all the players in together. Here's the coach. And let's just all kind of, and everybody shared this mentality that we loved playground. I mean, if our color wasn't red, I'd say that we bleed blue or orange, but we all bleed red. Yes, we all bleed red, but we bleed playground red.
Yeah.
And every single person that was on staff wanted to see the event be successful. I don't think, as I said that I worked 20 hours. I wasn't the only one. You got dealers who are dealing for 16 hours, and that's grueling. But everybody did it happily. Like, they were part of something. They felt they were part of something. They wanted to be here. People didn't want to go home. They're saying, don't cut me. I'm going to stick around. I'll be back here in the morning if you need me to be here. So, how do we do it? It's a testament to the people that were around us at that time, and I mean, that continued with us throughout our years. But without that collection of staff, there is no successful event. So really, I mean, there's a number of different elements, right? I mean, you have to have the players and want to show up there as well, but really it was the team that was in place that ensured that we were able to put out the product that we did.
So how about your partnership with Partypoker? The last time I was at Playground, I was there for a WPT side event, and I came in to play the event, and I was sponsored by Stars at the time, so I had a Stars patch, and I come in and I'm like, boom, Partypoker live. Like, there's Partypoker everywhere. It's popping. I'm like, wow, okay, there's something going on with Partypoker, Later, I obviously signed with them, and now I'm 2 years with them. So I'm curious how that whole relationship came to be between you and Partypoker.
It's the same time as WPT. So back then, WPT and Partypoker were both owned by the same company. I think they were under the BWIN banner back then. Mm-hmm. And through individual conversations, I think it's almost like one goes with the other. So the first, there might have been an 888 sponsorship or an 888 event before WPT, but I'm not sure. But if it was small, right? There's like a super stack event, might have been a one-off, a one-day tournament or something of those sorts. But the first WPT was sponsored by Partypoker, and I think it was collectively that they decided to take a chance on the property. Back then, there was a country manager for Canada for Partypoker, but I think that individual also had probably a lot of sway with the WPT brand, or he represented both. And then after a couple meetings on site, it was agreed to that they'll take a chance, and I don't think that's ever forgotten either. We've worked with I'm pretty sure everybody. I mean, obviously not everybody, but all the major players. Like I mentioned, we worked with the 888. We had worked with Stars. We had worked with Full Tilt. We worked with Party. We had Tony Bet here, who's I think they're a bit bigger in Europe, but throughout all those relationships, the one constant has been Party, where Party was there in 2012, and Party's still with us today. And I guess as time went on, not only do we share a specific mindset, but a specific view and vision as to how we see the game evolving, and the respect for the game. And really, poker was something specific and special. And it was just decided that, as time progressed, we're just so happy working with Party. Like, as you mentioned, you walk in, there's a big, backlit sign on our wall. It says, Partypoker on it.
It was action.
There's just, there really isn't a need to jump from one to the other. We love working with them. They liked working with us. And I think it was just a natural progression that, we're going to do events every month. Why don't we just work together on them? And collectively, it just evolved from there.
So how about this WPT Montreal Online this year? Obviously, in the current situation we find ourselves in with COVID, not able to travel to the club. I'm itching to get there. I'm close, but I'm looking forward to the online version this year anyways. 3,200 main event starts this Sunday. So what can people expect in the online version? And hopefully some of the identity comes through in the festival that we're going to see here.
It's bittersweet, because you obviously want to have WPT go off as it has every year. And it's actually funny. I was saying how at least we didn't miss WPT Montreal this year. Truth is, we kind of did, because we missed the 2020 WPT Montreal. Nobody's fault, but I'm happy that it's happening. I'm happy that it's going on. I'm happy that Party Poker sees the value in that WPT Montreal name. And what can we expect? I mean, I think we can expect same thing you can expect from any one of the other awesome series that Party Poker runs. It'll be a really kick-ass tournament. It'll be an awesome series. There's some great guarantees. I think that there'll be a big contingent of Canadians, as we do see for the live events and the live series being represented. Not that they're going out on a limb, but these events are being run at Canadian-friendly times, which I know for Party is always kind of a not a difficult thing to do. I mean, that's the wrong word to use, but they got much better traction overseas than they do within this very large landmass that shares 5 or 6 time zones. Very difficult to navigate.
It's not necessarily the peak of the day, is it? It's
no,
not the international peak, but it's cool.
And it depends where you are in Canada as to what time it is for you. But I love the fact that they have a mini main event and a micro event happening. It's really giving people the opportunity to play a WPT main event, which they otherwise wouldn't be able to do. I think that's huge. One of the big things, I think, the big difference is that I haven't been able to play WPT Montreal in 8 years. And I think this year I can. So nice. from a selfish perspective, I love it because, I want to win a WPT Montreal. So we'll see. But yeah, I'm excited for that I get to jump into the action.
That's great, man. I've been playing some of the satellites. There's a great satellite this Sunday and the following Sunday. It's a 50-seat guarantee into the main event, 320 buy-in, but people can get in from like a cent, actually. Like you play from a cent to $33 to $320. Like there's a way to get in for a super micro bankroll. So I've been playing these 33 to 320 satellites, right? And I see all the Canadian flags because they're real name tournaments, Yeah. It's a WPT. Everyone's under the real name. So I'm seeing all the Canadian flags, and I'm just getting a real sense of like being home. It's nice to play because it does get across this feeling of being a playground event, even though it's online and people can play from, Scandinavia if they want to, right? It still feels like home. So it's cool.
I actually loved it at the onset of the satellites. So as you mentioned, there were the centrals into nightly 330s, so $3.30 into a $33 one, right? So for the first 10 or 11 weeks, you couldn't even buy in to the final. You have to qualify your way in. So people were winning the seats. Like the first 100 seats that have been awarded were won for a maximum of $33, which is huge. Yes. But I think week 1 or week 2, I'm going through the winners list and I see Sylvain Sibert. And I don't know if you know who that is, but Sylvain Sibert, I see this name right away. It just my face lights up. I start glowing and I'm so happy because Sylvain is like a WPT Montreal legend. Right. This guy and I wish I had my dates in front of me and that I took down notes, but you're looking at the first 2, 3, or 4 WPTs, whether it be the WPT Montreal, and we used to also run a Canadian Spring Championships. We ran 2 events in a calendar year.
Remember that, yeah.
And Sylvain was like back-to-back final tables. Like this guy that I never heard of, most guys, and maybe I'm wrong, right? We weren't really familiar with who he was, but this guy comes in and he's aggressive. Like you're watching him play, and this guy is shooting, and he is playing, and he's a player's player. And then just every time, you wouldn't see him for a few months, he pops in for WPT, and then there he is on the either unofficial or official final table for 3-4 events in a row. So I see him as being one of the first guys to satellite it, and I'm like, yeah, obviously. It's like just this event to me is synonymous with Sylvain. So I was happy to see that not only was he trying to qualify so early, but that he was going to play the event that won his seat. So and it's funny because there's a couple people, and as I mentioned, I used to be a player, but I'm really far removed from playing, for the past 10 years. But I'm seeing it specifically in WPT Montreal where, that same group of people are continuously making it down to those final 2-3 tables, and specific people are making it down to the unofficial table. Like you got guys that I don't understand how, there's 10 players left, and I keep on seeing you here. I mean, it makes you think of, I forget who said the quote, or actually, no, this is from Rounders, where he says, it's no it's no surprise that the same faces keep on making it down to the final table of the World Series, something along those lines.
Yes.
And just seeing it for myself with WPT events here at Playground, it's true. It's just the same group. You know, Eric Afriat was one of the guys. I think he's a 3-time WPT champ at this point in time. Montreal, but consecutively, also like Sylvain, making it deep. Emma Zajovic, I think is her last name. Maybe I possibly butchered it, but she also multiple times made it down. I think she was heads up more than once on the final table. So just a lot of there's something about WPT Montreal and Playground where you got 5-10 people that are continuously going deep in these events.
Absolutely.
So.
Something I wanted to highlight as well, which I saw on the schedule, a really special event and just a special moment in WPT history and in Playground poker history. Mike Sexton taking down the WPT at Playground, the late great Mike Sexton. There's a tribute tournament, 10,000 guarantee, or $10,000 buy-in and 1 million guarantee, 2-day event at the end of the series. This is after the main event. But I mean, what a special moment, right? Mike Sexton, a guy that forever changed poker and just the world in general with how big of a character he was, to win that WPT. I mean, incredible. So I think a really great nod with that event at the end of the series. How about your time with Mike? Did you get to interact with him much at Playground?
I did. And it's funny because you rewind back to that first WPT event. As I mentioned, we were kind of, I'd say newcomers to this world of poker on a global scale, right? You always had your small network, and then you meet Mike, and Mike's one of these guys you see on TV, not as a player, but you see him as a commentator, like as you mentioned, larger than life type characters that you almost get starstruck when you meet him. So you kind of keep to yourself, and you're introverted, and you're not sure is he just being polite because it's part of his job, or does he really want to talk to you? But then you start seeing him more and more and more. And the guy remembers your name, and you're like, "Whoa, it's Mike Sexton, and he knows who I am." Yeah. But all that aside, this is one of, and I mean, I'm the last person. This has been said by every single person that has had anything to say about Mike. This is one of the most genuinely good guys and good-hearted people that I've ever met. He's just always in a good mood, always positive things to say about you or other individuals. Always trying to bring people up, which is something that, it's a bit rare these days where it just genuinely seems like that's your goal, that's your intention. When he won the event, I mean, I couldn't have seen a bigger rail of people. And then you have people talk about, me playing at a table at Playground. You have all this WPT staff that is railing him and wanting him to win. And you're like, you don't really want people to see this, but everybody understands, and it's okay. And it is what it is. But you're watching it happen, and it's almost as if, and I think collectively, every person in that room knew Mike's going to win it. And it didn't matter what cards he was getting. If you remember, he was a dog for so much of that final table. And then once they got heads up, or once he got his cards in, it's just everything was going his way. And before things started going his way, you almost knew things are going to go his way. This is his time. It's written. This was something that was going to happen. And the fact that it happened in Montreal, he always had such good things to say about Playground. That he loved the property, he loved how it was ran, he loved our dealers. It was something very special for us that that championship was able to be won at Playground. We could give him a belt to go along with it, but like I said, man, watching it unfold even before, you're like, I know who the winner is going to be. And I think everybody knew. It didn't matter what card you got. Didn't matter if you were ahead. It didn't matter if he had one out. He's hitting it, right? He could have had no out. Some miracle is going to happen and it come out. But yeah, so I'm super happy, much like you, to see that there is a tournament dedicated to Mike with WPT Montreal. And I think that's actually something that if it isn't going to be part of the standard WPT schedule for live events at every stop, I can guarantee that it definitely will be one in Montreal when we come back and host the event live again.
Absolutely. So I have one more question for you. I'm a new resident of the city. I've spent a couple months here before, but I've moved here now permanently. So after this pandemic's over, do you have any advice for the audience? Montreal, they're coming in to see There's no pandemic. They're obviously playing at Playground. What else would you recommend to people visiting the area?
Go out to dinner. We have some of the best restaurants that I've ever seen. It's a very diverse city, but in a very good way. So we have a great nightlife, whether it be the bars, but the restaurants. You have world-class chefs, numerous world-class chefs that have restaurants over here. You can't go wrong. What is there to do here? I'm not a young buck anymore, so I don't go out as much as I used to. But if I guarantee that if you want to find something to do in this city, you're gonna find it. It's you take things for granted, right? And unfortunately, I'm one of these people that, to me, this is all normal. Mm-hmm. But I realize when I go elsewhere how good we have it here in Montreal. It's just go for a walk downtown, go to Old Montreal. There's no shortage of ways to entertain yourself when you're here. So, but
there's action,
above all else,
sure.
Come play at Playground.
Absolutely, 100%. Jeff Gross, a mutual friend of ours. He's like, this is my Canadian home. There's action here. There is action everywhere in Montreal. It's really great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. Looking forward to the WPT Montreal and picking your brain on, Playground, an iconic place. It's been amazing to talk with you, and thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Jamie.
Big thanks to Phil for taking the time. Now, before I let you all go, we have a weekly competition where you can win a ticket. It's called #JSPokerHero. All you have to do is tweet the answer to this skill testing question on Twitter. We're going to choose one winner, and you're going to win a ticket. What it's going to be? 2 $55 Gladiator Daily Legend tickets. So 2 winners this week. Into the Gladiator. You'll see me there. Thursday to Tuesday, I play it. So good luck. In the WPT Montreal, what will be the minimum guarantee for the Mike Sexton Classic? We've said it 2 times on this podcast. If you missed it, well, you didn't listen. So go back, okay? What will be the minimum guarantee for the Mike Sexton Classic coming up in this WPT Montreal online? Thank you all so much for watching the podcast. Get your answers into that tweet. #JSPokerHero on Twitter. Forgot to add that. But it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you all so much for taking the time. But until next week, we'll see you later.